Hi, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today is Bookmas Day 7. I think I'm going to aim to go to day 12 with this whole thing. It has definitely been a challenge for me to shoot and edit a video every day, but I feel like I'm getting better at it and it has been a fun challenge, and it has allowed me to do a lot of casual bookish videos. And I have had so many different ideas floating around in my head and not knowing if I should devote a full video to it. So Bookmas kind of worked out perfectly for me. I think I will do like an abbreviated 12-day Bookmas, and then the rest of the month I will leave to my kind of end of the year wrap up type videos, which will be most likely an end of the year look at all the books I read, and then I may do a couple reaction videos or something else along those lines. So today I wanted to do a little video on the big books that I am trying to read in 2025. So we are getting close to the end of the year, and I've had a lot of big books that I've been wanting to read, but I've been kind of pushing off because I've been either intimidated by it or I'm trying to reach a book goal that month. And so, especially at the end of the year, I've been wanting to reach 100 books. And reading, a 800 page book is gonna really make it much harder for me to reach that goal. So I haven't been prioritizing those books as much. I have a stack here of big books that I want to prioritize next year, and I think next year I'm probably going to make my reading goal lower and focus on maybe some of these bigger books, focus on just reading whatever I want but not worrying about a goal. And for the most part this year, I've been doing that, but at the end of the year, I've definitely felt my goal knocking at my door and have felt that pressure. So I think next year I'm going to kind of lay on the brakes a little bit and make it a little bit lower of a goal so I don't feel that at the end of the year. And if I supersede it, then great. Honestly, I superseded my goal this year. At the beginning of the year, I think I put 50 books, but because I blew through 50 books so early in the year, I then doubled it and made it 100, and then that's when it got a little more, not stressful, but more pressure on myself. No one's putting this pressure on me. I don't think you have to read a lot of books. I just think this was kind of the year for me to hit that 100 book goal, and I've always wanted to do that. I don't know if 100 books is ever going to be doable in the next couple of years, so I definitely wanted to go for it this year. Once I hit it, which I'm going to hit it, I'm thinking positive, then next year, like I said, I'll kind of make it a little bit of an easier goal and I won't worry about it. So it was a long-winded intro, but let's get into the big books that I am going to prioritize to read next year. And most of these books are 500 pages or more. Some of them are over 700. So I tried to pick like big books that I've been eyeing for a while. The first one is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I've had this book for probably 3 years now, and I keep looking at it and I keep thinking one day, and I just need to do it. Especially this year, I feel like I've seen a lot of people tackle this book and really enjoy it. So it's kind of added more of an incentive for me. It is 800, well, my copy, every book has a different amount of pages. My copy is 858 pages. So almost 900. This, I think what first turned me on to this book was, I think Stephen King mentioned this book as one of his favorite books of all time. And if you know a little bit about Stephen King, then you probably know, obviously he writes a lot. And he has said in interviews that he reads a lot too. Like, he's that guy that will read while standing in line at the movie theater. Like, he's constantly reading. And so he reads a lot of books. And he's also one of those guys that does a ton of blurbs. So he reads a lot of books because his blurbs are all over every book. So I put a lot of value in his recommendation and his, what he likes, because he's a prolific writer and he's a prolific reader. So this was one of those books. Now, I could be wrong. I could have just seen that and it could not be true. So hopefully it's true. This is the 25th anniversary edition with a new preface by the author, and it's just a nice big paperback. If you haven't heard about this book, this is kind of like the Western novel of all Western novels. It says a love story, an adventure, and an epic of the frontier. Larry McMurtry's Pulitzer Prize winning classic, Lonesome Dove, the third book in the Lonesome Dove tetralogy, is the grandest novel ever written about the last defiant wilderness of America. Journey to the dusty little Texas town of Lonesome Dove and meet an unforgettable assortment of heroes and outlaws, whores and ladies, Indians and settlers. Richly authentic, beautifully written, always dramatic, Lonesome Dove is a book to make us laugh, weep, dream, and remember. Love the idea that it's kind of an old Western American novel. So this is the first book. The next book I have on here is not a book that I've really seen anybody, at least that I follow, talk about, and that is I Am Rome, and this is by Santiago Posteguillo. I think that's how you say his name. It's a novel of Julius Caesar, and it says it's a #1 international bestseller. I think I saw this book, I don't know where I saw this book, honestly. I came across it and I read the description and it sounded really interesting to me, and because it's so internationally popular, that also interested me. There's a glossary back here. Whoa. Okay, so this one is, there's also a historical note. So it is 568 pages. This looks much bigger than 568 pages, maybe because it's hardback. But basically, it says, discover the runaway #1 international bestseller that has captured readers the world over and reminds us all why we remember the name Julius Caesar. It's historical fiction. It follows, a very prominent figure in history, Julius Caesar. Let me know if you've heard anything about this. I haven't really heard anybody talk about it, but it has to be popular if it's a #1 international bestseller. What year is this? Let me see. This came out in... Oh, it's okay. This is a translation, came out in 2024. So this is a first edition for the translation. The original came out in 2022 in Spain. So this must be really popular overseas, and maybe it hasn't really found its English audience yet. I don't know, but I will definitely read it and we'll let people know if it's worth a read. It must be good. Then we have a very beloved book that is super popular. It actually connects to Lonesome Dove because it is Stephen King's 11/22/63. This is a very big book as well. I think we're clocking in at like 850 pages. And then I see there's like a 11/22/63 playlist, an 11/22/63 menu with recipes in the back. How fun. It's a behemoth of a book. My sister actually read this book. This is one of her favorite books. She absolutely loved it. She said that the characters and everything, it just really grips you. And everybody else that I've seen read it says the same. It is, I think, one of his more popular modern books that he's written. So it is, if you haven't heard of this, which be surprised if you haven't, it is about a guy, I believe, that goes back in time who tries to stop the JFK assassination, if I'm correct. And then I think he gets stuck in that time or something. I'm not sure. I don't want to read too much because I don't want to be spoiled. But I heard that the characters are ones that you really remember and that you connect with. So 11/22/63. That is a very big book. Some floppy ASMR for you. And then I have 2 books that I don't have copies of yet, but I think I'll probably buy used copies of them when I get to reading them. And the first one is East of Eden, and this is by John Steinbeck. This is, I feel like, an American classic of a book. A lot of people have been reading it this year, which has kind of stoked my interest in it, to be honest. And I heard that it's just following a family. I think you're following them across a lot of generations, and it's Steinbeck. I actually read The Pearl when I was really young. I remember borrowing it from the library. I think I was probably like 10 or 11, and I kept borrowing that same book because I liked it. And so I haven't read a Steinbeck since, and I think this is probably his, the magnus opus. And this is the book that I have to read. And I think if you're a literary lover, then there's certain books in your head that you think you need to read just to know. And this is one of them for me. And East of Eden clocks in at like 600 pages, so it's definitely a longer one. And another book that I'm really excited to read that I've seen all over the place that I have been putting off because it is such a big book, and that is The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois, and it is by Honoré Fanonne Jeffers. I hope I'm not butchering that name too horribly. And it is clocking in at 816 pages. It is a very big book. It came out a few years ago, and ever since I've just seen it constantly. And it says it chronicles the journey of one American family from the centuries of the colonial slave trade through the Civil War to our own tumultuous era. And I think this is just a big saga of a book that follows a family that goes from slavery through Reconstruction, Civil War, Reconstruction, and onwards up until modern times. So it's popular for a reason. It has a really high rating on Goodreads. I think it's like a 4.5. So it is well loved, and there must be a reason why. And I am really interested in reading that one as well. And you know it's a good sign when all the people that you follow on Goodreads have given it 5 stars. And then the last book that I want to talk about that is a big book that I would like to read next year, and it's The Heart's Invisible Furies. And this is by John Boyne. I think it's John Boyne. And this one clocks in at 582 pages, so nearly 600 pages. So it says the story revolves around the life of Cyril, who struggles with his sexuality, but it takes on a broad range of prejudice and intolerance in the Ireland of the past 70 years. So I think it just follows this one character throughout his life, and every review I see about it is just that it's the best book ever, and I don't need to know much more. I want to read it. So that is the last book that I have on this little list. So that's it. Those are, how many books did I mention? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I almost actually forgot about one book that I was going to tag in on the end, because this may or may not be on my TBR next year, depending on how the rest of this month goes. And that book is The Will of the Many. I've talked about this book so much. This has been on my TBR for the whole year. It is, how many pages? 620, and it is so popular and well loved. I just haven't found a time for it, and I was like, okay, I will read it in December. But I don't know if I can slot in this big of a book if I'm going to hit my 100 book mark. So I'm kind of leaving this for the end of the month. I'm reading all of the books that are shorter than this to read, and I've been reading those ones. If I get to the end of the month and I'm at 99 books and I have a few days, then I will power through this book. But I don't want to get stuck on this one for a week and then not have enough time to make up the books after it. So this may or may not be on my list for next year, and I'm going to hate talking about it all next year if I leave it on for next year. But I will say, if it does stay on my TBR and I don't finish it this year, I am going to prioritize it for January. And there's also, now that I think about it, another big book. Well, I don't know if it's going to be a big book, but I can only assume it's going to be a big book. And that is the 3rd book in the Fourth Wing series. I think it's called the Empyrean series. That 3rd book comes out in January, I think mid-January, and I'm probably going to buy that and pick it up and read it upon release. And knowing that it's a fantasy book and it's a 3rd book in a very popular series, it's probably going to be pretty long. And so I might have to get this done in the beginning of the month before that book comes out, because I really want to read that book just because I like to be part of the hype of that series. And honestly, that's the only reason why I am so on top of the Fourth Wing series, is because it was one of the few books that I read during the height of popularity and have read the 2nd book during its release, and now the 3rd book is coming out. So kind of just reading that series, not because I absolutely love it. I think it's fine, it's entertaining, but because I like to be part of the hype, because I'm not part of the hype very often. So anyways, that is probably, this is going to be a book that may or may not make it to next year. Okay, so this is not even including the few that I don't own. And this is a very big stack. So as you can see why I've been intimidated to get to them, but I think they're going to be read by next year. Mark my words. Like, hopefully, the end of next year, I can pull out these big books and say that I've read them. We'll see. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you being here in my little niche of the internet, and I will see you on my next video.